Okay, cool, but that's only that microphone. On the mirror. If I did, okay, cool, thank you. Yeah. So I think it's not there for the first time in the state. That's it. Yeah, listen. And then there will also be some.
How are you?
That's all right here.
I know it's been. Yeah. No.
Yeah. And then we'll start.
No, just send it to the mom.
Good.
No, sure. Yeah.
I don't mind. Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah. Congratulations.
I just showed on screen, it literally just, but it doesn't have like a red or a yellow, it's just like a Google page.
Right.
All right, good evening, everyone. Just before we get started here, I bang the gavel again. Obviously, it's the start of our summer fun in the library. Just a reminder, we have city hall construction with the library being repaired to make sure that we have space that is accessible to all. We have moved ourselves into the ADA compliant and accessible library. So a couple things to know. Things I hadn't even thought about, we got in the room. Alder Davis said, so what do we do? We want to talk to me, raise our hand. That seems to be the best approach because we don't have the queue for you to put your name in queue. We do have these microphone speakers that are on there. So we're hoping that picks up everybody's voice. But if people could speak up a little bit more than you normally do, not that I think there's many shy people on council, but nonetheless, if you can speak up when it is your turn. And so with that, I guess I would just ask, it might go a little bit slower today. I would just ask people for patience. We're learning as we go. And so we will begin. So if it's okay, digitally. Good evening, everyone. The hour of 6 o'clock having arrived here in the Racine Public Library. It is my honor to call to order the City of Racine Common Council agenda this afternoon. So it is the 3rd of June, and our first order of business is to rise if you are able and join me in facing peace. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Alder Courtney, do we have any absences for the season?
No, we don't.
And I believe we may have one alder appearing virtually. We do have an alder appearing virtually. Just as a reminder for people, we will be doing roll call votes. Obviously, we are not in the chamber to be able to vote electronically, so you'll be needing to vote when the clerk calls your name. The first alder voting tonight is
Alder Fraser online.
Alder Fraser online. It would be a pattern. First, I'm going to get some first. Okay, so the next item of business, Alder Burton, at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve the Journal of Council proceedings for the minutes from May 20th, 2025.
Move to approve.
There's a motion to approve it and seconded by Alder Burton. It was close, but go from there. Any discussion on said minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. we do have a couple proclamations that I would like to make note of for this evening. That we wanted to make note of. The first of which, and we'll have discussion on it later today, in celebration is the upcoming Juneteenth Day. The proclamation reads, on January 1st, 1863, Abraham Lincoln declared the end of slavery and the Emancipation Proclamation. 2.5 years later, and a few months after the end of the Civil War, Union troops arrived in Galveston on June 19th, 1865, to find that the news of the proclamation had not yet reached Galveston, and that people were still being held as slaves in Texas. And whereas the leader of the Union troops, General Gordon Granger, then formally announced the emancipation from the balcony of the former Confederate Army headquarters, and whereas officially known as Emancipation Day, and also called Juneteenth Independence Day and Freedom Day, Juneteenth is a compound word for June and 19th and commemorates June 19th, 1865, the announcement of the abolition of slavery in Texas and the emancipation of African American slaves throughout the Confederate South. And whereas Juneteenth National Independence Day is a U.S. federal holiday that was signed into law by President Joe Biden on Thursday, June 17th, 2021. Juneteenth is a state holiday observed in 29 states and Washington, D.C. on June 19th every year. And whereas 2024 marked the first year the city of Racine recognized Juneteenth as an official city holiday, and therefore I encourage all employees to observe and celebrate this important day. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Corey Mason, proclaim June 19th, 2025 as Juneteenth Day, in witness whereof I have here unto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Racine to be affixed. Moving on then to public comments, if I could ask the clerk to please read or say loudly the procedures for public comment.
The public comment segment is an opportunity for citizens to speak directly to the Common Council. Speakers will limit their remarks to 3 minutes. There shall be no dialogue or interaction between the speaker and elected officials or staff. This time is not intended to be a debate or discussion. The Common Council shall not hear personal complaints or attacks against any city employee or elected official or any matter related to an individual claim, citation, appeal, or lawsuit. Profane, disruptive, threatening, or conduct that otherwise impedes the safe, orderly, and effective conduct of the Common Council meeting is equally unacceptable during the public comment period as it is during all other portions of city meetings. When a group of people representing one viewpoint wishes to address the council, one person should be appointed the designated speaker for the group. Candidates for public office may not use this opportunity to campaign for office. Speakers during the public comment period shall follow all rules of the Common Council and rulings of the chair, including a decision to terminate the remarks if the speaker does not adhere to the rules. Public comment shall be limited to ideas or concerns regarding the city of Racine. There will be 5 speakers this evening. The first is Michael Schrader, 1636 Chatham Street.
Michael, before you come up, it's a little bit different, but we're still gonna have the 3-minute clock. The difference is we'll need everyone to honor the 3-minute mark and it will not change colors or anything like that. If anyone exceeds the 3 minutes, I will gavel you out. It's not a commentary on anything that anybody's saying, but just to treat everybody fairly and in accordance with the rules. So with that, Mr. Schrader, if you'd like to begin.
Well, it's June, so it's Pride Month, so happy Pride Month to everybody. I'm probably one of the few people who actually goes home and watches the entire council meeting, all 3.5 hours of it. I'll say it's great for my insomnia sometimes. But don't you think that's kind of absurd that we're having 16 pages of things on the agenda and 3.5 hour council meetings? That's not fair to you all, it's not fair to the citizens, it's not fair to anybody to have these ridiculously absurd meetings. And there was some issues brought up about people not wanting to serve on committees and groups like that. Well, part of the problem is the city is just dysfunctional. And that's the best way I can describe the city of Racine. We are so dysfunctional. Look at you all tonight, you gotta make an issue about a sign. Somebody wants to put a sign up and it's gotta come to you for a vote. That's kind of like silly when you think about it, because staff should be able to do that automatically. And the cities that I've worked at, I could issue parade permits, I could issue all kinds of permits that I never even met most of the councils in the cities that I worked in. And because they knew that the staff was gonna do their job. We need a new form of city government. I mean, that's just all there is to it, because every week we gotta contact the city attorney, go, can we do this? Does the charter say this? The charter is old. It's time to refresh. It's time to look at new ways. And we are a charter city. We have the right to do that. And you'll see a lot of other cities around the country have been doing that. They've been updating their form of government to make it more responsive, more efficient. And more people want to get involved because they're not sitting here for I feel bad for you guys. I couldn't do it because I flip out from hunger, sitting here for 3.5 hours. I really give you guys a lot of respect. But it's hard, and if you're watching it from home, it's just like your mind is numb after watching 3.5 hours. And it's just small nitpicky stuff that really does not have a place at a council meeting, but there's really not many choices because of how the city government is structured. So last time I talked about flags and civic pride, another source of civic pride is reach out to people and say, are we working for you? I can give you the answer to that is no. And if we were to redo the city government, what would you want out of the city government? How would you want it structured? And I think that's a good starting point. And no more 3.5 hour meetings. Thank you. I used up my 3 minutes. See,
Thank you.
The next speaker is Steve Belair and Michelle Ulinski at 930 Crabtree Lane.
Hi. I think I'm correct in understanding that you can't run a retail business or any kind of business in a residential area. And we're having a problem right now that I'm gonna kind of describe to you. If you have a home here in Racine, you know that a lot of times the driveways are very close to the houses. There's not a lot of space between two houses. Picture yourself with a neighbor who has 5 cars jammed end to end with about this much space between them in their driveway. And they're using that space to prepare cars for sale. They're using a shop vac for sometimes 3-hour stretches. While they're shop vacuuming, they've got the doors of the cars open and they've got a stereo going to add to the noise. There's also an additional 3, sometimes 4 cars on the street. Most of these cars do not have plates or plates applied for or anything. They're clearly for sale. And this person has had people come to look at cars, to test drive cars, transfer papers with them. And this has gone on now for 2 years. And he's gotten very clever at knowing when the city has been notified and kind of moves things around. They're also doing repairs and body work in the garage, and so that gets noisy. And I didn't think that was doable. I didn't think I was allowed to do that. As a neighbor, you can't really open your windows in the summer because there's this, you know how loud a shop is. You can't really hear your TV. I can be on the other side of my house, all my windows closed, my TV on, and I can still hear the noise that they're making because there's an echo effect between houses. It's not appropriate. There's no question that this is a business. The photos of the cars have been on Facebook Marketplace with my house in the background because he kind of takes that angle. I'm like, I have no part of this. The interesting thing that I noticed just this last couple of weeks, he switches plates around if he has some plates. He's now using a dealer plate. Okay, it's clearly a Wisconsin dealer plate with a DL, and the number is 6063AA. It is registered to B&D Farm Supply in Arcadia, Wisconsin. Now somehow, he's either hooked up with these guys that are selling cars to them, or it's a stolen plate. But it's almost a comedy of errors. There's switching plates every day and moving cars around like they won't notice. So I really like some more help addressing this. Thank you.
The next speaker is Jeff Coe at 1044 Villa Street.
Alders, I come before you tonight to support PSL recommendation of item number 0495 25 for a beer license for 930 Washington Avenue. If you're not familiar, it's the old Total 24 next to Popeyes on Washington Avenue. This property has been an eyesore for over 15 years. People that own Twins Market on 16th Street has a great plan for this site. They are totally renovating the property to the tune of $1.5 million, new gas pumps, brand new facade, and the store to be totally renovated. This will be a great improvement for the Washington Avenue corridor. The store will have grocery items and other necessities. If you have not gone to their store on 16th Street, I urge you to do so. They have a beautiful store there for the neighborhood. I believe they will do a beautiful job on Washington Avenue. This area is a food desert. We need this. Please support this. It would help beautify a gateway into the downtown. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Diana Valencia at 3919 Ruby Ave.
Good evening. Right. Can you hear me? All right. Here actually to, share my appreciation. Recently, the city of Racine, there's been, different type of human services, programs. Buildings, businesses closed down and, or moved. And one of our most valuable ones have been, the Social Security office on Durand Avenue. It was moved out to, the Racine County, which is a little further for Racine residents, that are so used to having, the Social Security office on Durand Avenue. And I'd like to say thank you, especially to Trevor Young, because he is providing bus service out to meet in front of the new Social Security. So I just want to thank all the different communities and people who helped Trevor, our transportation person, make this decision without having people coming in and begging and cheating, whatever, arguing with everybody to make it happen. It's called proactive collaboration amongst city and county. So please keep up the, thank you.
The next speaker is Aaron, I'm sorry, I can't quite read your last name, 1601 Washington.
Good evening, all. My name is Aaron Banky and I own the property at 1601 Washington and 1436 Owen. That is being proposed for a significant pavement project summer of next year. Coming to announce again my formal opposition. The alleys that I'm being subjected to have no benefit to my business whatsoever. If anything, they're being used to bring abandoned vehicles, trailers, and trash into my parking lot. And then I am reminded that's not a very pleasant thing from the city and turns into a lot of fun. So again, just coming down here to formally announce my opposition, but at the same time, eagerly looking forward to working with my alder, other city departments to come up with some type of resolution that's going to work for me, my business, and the city while trying to beautify uptown, which is something that should be on every agenda going forward. Thank you.
This concludes the public comment segment.
Thank you. I'm gonna go back just one step and read the Pride Month resolution that is here. We do have a proclamation there and it reads. Proclamation from the city of Racine, whereas Pride Month is an annual celebration of the LGBTQ+ community that takes place in June each year, and whereas this month marks the anniversary of the 1969 Stonewall riots, defining event in the LGBTQ rights movement, triggered by the police raid on a gay bar in Greenwich Village, New York City. The uprising became a catalyst for the fight for equal rights and is recognized as a turning point in history. Whereas Pride Month is an important reminder of the progress made by the LGBTQ+ community in the fight for equality, acceptance, and visibility. It is also time to recognize the many challenges still faced by the LGBTQ+ people and their allies. Whereas Pride Month is a reminder to the world that discrimination and prejudice are still prevalent and the fight for justice and equality is ongoing. Whereas in 2022 and 2023, the city of Racine earned a perfect municipal equity index score by enhancing hate crime reporting, appointing LGBTQ liaisons, banning conversion therapy, strengthening non-discrimination policies, and expanding healthcare for trans and non-binary employees. Now therefore, I, Corey Mason, Mayor, proclaim the month of June 2025 Pride Month. Invite everyone to recommit to the ongoing fight for equality, acceptance, and freedom. In witness hereof, I have set my hand and caused the seal of the city to be a law. Thank you. We'll now move on to communications introduced to council. We will start with Alder Lamb, who is the chair of finance. If you could make a motion on the referral items to your committee.
I'd like to make a motion to refer these items to the Finance and Personnel Committee. Can you hear me? Item 0543-25, communication sponsored by myself on behalf of Human Resource Benefits Manager, requesting to appear before the Finance and Personnel Committee to discuss employee health care and plan options. Item 0558-25, communication sponsored by myself and Alder Townsend, requesting an update on the Racine Zoological Gardens and Weston Museum. Item 056325, communication by myself on behalf of the city's attorney's office submitting the claim of Marissa White for consideration for disallowance. Item 0567-25, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason and President Horton submitting the 2026 budget calendar for consideration. Item 0568-25, communication sponsored by myself on behalf of the Chief of Police and City Attorney to consider strategy for crime detection or prevention. Item 0569-25, communication sponsored by myself on behalf of the City Attorney presenting a proposed addendum non-disclosure agreement to agreement between the City of Racine and Catalyst Tax and CAMA Incorporated. Item 0570-25, communication sponsored by myself on behalf of the City Attorney presenting a proposed confidentiality agreement between the City of Racine City Assessor and County of Racine Real Property Lister and intended to protect personal information of certain judicial officers in order to carry into effect the Wisconsin Judicial Privacy Act. Item 0571-25, communication sponsored by myself on behalf of the City Attorney requesting authorization for the City's Attorney's Office to represent all city employees and officers in the following: Marshina McWhorter versus City of Racine, Adam Locke versus City of Racine, McFarland versus Piper, the estate of Dante Shannon versus City of Racine, Dassel K et al. Brenner. I move to refer these to Finance and Personnel.
Second.
So motion in a second to refer these items to finance and personnel. Alder Weidner.
I just have a question on item 0567-25 regarding the 2026 budget calendar. Should that not be attached to this agenda item? That's on page 2. I just see this.
It is attached.
It is an attachment. It's not on the printed copy, though. Oh, okay. Is that, that must have been added yesterday?
I don't know,
Because,
but it is on there.
was that added yesterday? 'Cause I printed this off on.
I
Yes.
have to go back and take a look. It's possible it was either out Friday afternoon or Monday morning, depending on when you printed it. But the printed copy that's on everyone's desk is the updated version.
I
So,
printed this off at City Hall yesterday morning.
oh, well, it might have passed in the.
Thank you.
Seeing no further questions, all those in favor of these, referring these items to the finance and personnel committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That has been carried. Alder Mack, would you like to make a motion on referral to your, or the committee for which chair?
Thank you, Art. You make a motion to refer the following items to the Public Works and Services Committee.
Okay. I apologize. I'm trying to have a special consideration for 0555.
Okay, well, why don't we can get to that. Why don't we have him make the motion, and then if we wanna make an amendment or pull an item separately, we can do that.
Thank you, dear.
Yep.
Right, so I made the motion, 0550-25 communication sponsored by Alderman Widener requesting to repair and restore Mount Cemetery's fallen. 0559-25 communication on behalf of Derek Herman. Fast Signs requesting permission to place one sign over city of right of way at the Junisec location, 1422 Washington Avenue. 0560-25 communication sponsored by Mayor Mason requesting approval of discontinuance of the entirety of the right of way for Freeman Court, extending East Philly from its intersection of Frederick Street. Item 0561-25 communication on behalf of the Department of Public Works, submitting change order number 1 to contract 2023-040-2023 sanitary sewer repairs. Genesis Excavators and Contractors. Item 0562-25 communication on behalf of the Department of Public Works, submitting final payment for contract 2023-040-2023 sanitary sewer repairs. Genesis Excavators. 0572-25 communication on behalf of the Director of Parks, Recreation and Cultural Services, requesting authorization direction that city-owned parcels of real estate may be utilized by the city of Bucina, the state of Wisconsin, for the Ohio Street Road Improvement Project.
There is a second for this motion,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Prince. Alderman Herman, would you like to make an amendment or pull an item up for consideration?
Yes, I would like to, I would like to amend and pull item 0550-25. I would like to have that, and I say,
Yeah.
thank you. I would like to move to have that referred into the fiscal process determined and for it to then be referred to financial and personnel committee.
Okay, so all we're doing right now is referring, so, you can certainly make that request on the fiscal note, but I think at this point, the motion you want to make would be simply to refer it to another committee, so, that would be an appropriate motion at this time.
Thank you, I appreciate that clarification.
Yeah.
I would like to move to have it referred to to the finance and personnel committee.
There's a motion to send item 5, an amendment to the motion to send item 550-25 to finance and personnel. It was seconded by Alder Allen. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Yes, I think that, at this time, until, fiscal note with an exact amount is considered, it's hard to make a decision, and with regards to this, but most of all, I think the Finance and Personnel Committee would be the best committee for it to, go to, and not necessarily Public Works, which, determines other things and not necessarily financial obligation to the city.
Any, Alder Mack?
If we're gonna go that route, I would ask for a joint referral because Public Works oversees construction type projects, repairs. We've done it with all the city buildings. And I don't see why Finance Committee would have some overarching responsibility for that. If it comes down to a need to identify funds for it, perhaps. But there might already be funds in the budget for that, so I would request that there be a joint referral then, not just solely going to finance.
Alder Harmon, did you wanna, respond to that? Well, it wasn't a question, I guess, it was a request. But, do you wanna modify a motion to do a joint referral, or you wanna stick just how it is? Do that, Alder White?
I'm gonna speak against the motion to send this to the finance committee. Since the Wadowitz family donated the fountain to the cemetery back in the 1950s, it has been a joint project between both the Parks Department and Public Works to maintain the fountain in Mound Cemetery. So there's a little hiccup right now as far as who's to do what, as far as is the Parks Department that's responsible or Public Works Department. So it's not an issue of cost, it's just an issue of which department is going to get the fountain up and running again. So there's really no reason for this to go to finance. It's always been a joint project between the Parks Department and Public Works. So that's the reason why I requested that this go to Mound Cemetery or to the Public Works.
Alder Allen?
So going with what Alder Biker said, then
having it come before, if even if we did it as a joint, you would at least be able to identify what line item is budget for the repairs to that, so to that.
Thank you. My understanding is that this request has come before city council before and it hasn't been voted on or moved forward because the cost has been astronomical and that at this time, the city doesn't have the additional funds to advocate for something that is aesthetic and not necessarily revenue building. And I think that determining exactly if it's possible, where the monies will come from is something that needs to be decided in the finance and personnel department.
Alder Devon.
I just have a question for the city attorney. If you could, is there an ordinance, and I'm trying to remember here, it's sticking out in my head that anything that has any financial implications would be referred to finance and personnel, is that correct? Or could you give me clarification on that?
Well, I think the fiscal effect of any action can be addressed at any committee. But these are the areas for each of the standing committees. Finance and Personnel Committee is finance, accounts, claims, insurance and personnel. Public Works and Services Committee, streets, waterfront, harbors, bridges, traffic, parking, utilities, water, sanitation, lighting and buildings. And Public Safety and Licensing Committee, licenses, permits, parks, recreation, cemetery, education, welfare, Board of Health, fire, police, and emergency government services.
So just to be clear from what you read, each committee can determine a financial impact of said, whatever is coming before it, correct?
Every agenda item that comes to the Common Council for final action. So after it's gone through a committee is required to have a fiscal note. So the Common Council understands the cost and how something will be paid for.
It doesn't necessarily have to go to finance.
It doesn't necessarily have to go to finance or something, yes.
In that case, I would be in favor of Alderman, of just sending it to Public Works. At this point, it seems rather redundant to send it to finance and personnel to then send it to Public Works, and then you have this whole jumble, and there's nothing in the ordinance that requires us to do that, and as has been said before, this falls under the scope of Public Works. And I think they are perfectly capable of determining the number. Should that number come before us and we disagree, that is the time that we can certainly speak about it then, but I don't really see the need to do the runaround here. Thank you.
I would second that. Actually, I don't know if she's my constituent, but this is going back to earlier messages and emails that go to the beginning of March. That she was working with both the Public Works and the Parks Department. So I do believe that the Public Works Department is the appropriate spot. You know, that she's been working on possibly fundraising and trying to get the logistics of some of these things worked out. A lot of people that have family members in that cemetery are really passionate about that. So I certainly would agree with it going to the Public Works Department.
Alder Jorgensen.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, you know, the actual meat and potatoes of this is definitely, in Public Works. The one caveat would be that if there is going to be a large fiscal impact to it, it probably would make sense to have finance personnel take a look if there isn't budget for it. But if we're not knowing that, I guess I don't see any harm in it going to Public Works first. It's just the risk where they don't have, if they can't identify where it's supposed to be paid for, and there is a large ticket for it, then we need to have a larger budget impact than finance and personnel may have to wait later on for trying to find where it's gonna be paid for. But at this time, I think that it's well within Public Works to address it.
Alder Davis, do you have your hand?
Yes, that's the statement or a statement and then probably some clarification from the attorney. In Public Works Committee, we do work with items which have fiscal notes related to dollars, correct? So it's not outside of anything to bring this to Public Works and discuss whatever that fiscal note is. So each committee, whatever, something, well, not each, because PSL is different, but as far as finance and public works, we each deal with fiscal notes. So I'm not understanding why we are legitimately spending approximately 10 minutes on a referral.
We seem to spend lots of time on referrals. But I would just say what's different about this item is all these other projects have a line item in the budget that you can point to that has been budgeted and allocated, and there's the anticipation that that's a project that we're doing this year. This item doesn't seem to have that. So I think that's maybe some of the confusion. We're gonna put it out to bid. Public Works puts projects out to bid. They're the ones that do that, but usually projects have a line item that says this is going to be paid for from these funds, and it's not clear from referral that that's the case. So I think that might be some of the confusion that's here. I'm not weighing in one way or the other, but I think that's what makes some people say, I think this should maybe go to finance because it's not clear how we can pay for it. But other people are saying, yeah, it's a public works project, and if it's gonna be public works, they're the ones that do bids for public works project. It would make sense for them to do it, get the money where identified. I think that's might be where the confusion is coming in.
That is what I'm.
All it is.
So in between, right now, where we need to refer to either committee, we will need a fiscal note to go wherever it goes, and we'll need a fiscal note for discussion, correct?
Again, this is outside the norm. I mean, usually if you're gonna do a big capital project, it's something that goes in the annual budget. You anticipate the cost for it. You get the staff in place to prepare to do that. I don't know if there's a line item for it. The city attorney said he hadn't seen any discussion on this that he can find for the last 10 years. So I don't know is the honest answer.
There are
But
discussions to be had.
yes,
Okay.
but to move forward on it, you would have to identify a funding source, or it might come as a budget amendment, which will require a 3/4 vote. Or it might be something that's more appropriate to consider when the annual budget is put together. Alderman.
Thank you, second time on this. A lot of public works and services committees do their due diligence to identify the scope of work, potential contractors, costs. Staff is very good at being able to render estimates for how much they think a project may cost. We may not be the finance committee, but we spend an awful lot of money every 2 weeks. And so we do take that seriously. We're not going to approve something that doesn't have necessarily a budget, but we might make a recommendation that as the options were laid out, there may be money available. And if so, I think the Public Works Department will let us know. And if it's something that we need to amend the budget with, we're willing to make that recommendation if the committee agrees with the scope of the work that needs to be done. Or if it's something that has to be put in the CIP budget, but let the committee do their due diligence. And let us have a discussion first with the public, at the Public Works Committee level to even determine whether or not this is a project that we want to move forward with this year.
I'm willing, after the consideration and the discussion, I am willing to amend it to have a joint referral and back, Alder Mack on his, recommendation and have it go to both the finance and personnel as well as public works.
Okay, so the seconder of your original motion, we have to agree to that. What I believe was.
Alder Allen.
I think it was Alder Allen. No, Alder Allen. Okay, Alder Allen, do you agree to that adjustment?
Yes.
Okay. So we have Alder Jefferson.
The one, if I could make a recommendation, I don't know if we need a motion or if they would take it up, but I think it would make sense to have it go to Public Works first, and then come to, I do think it makes sense to have it go to both, especially if there isn't a funding source. But I think Public Works should get a first kick at a can to try to identify the scope of it, of what it looks like, to try to nail down what the scope of it would be and have it go to finance and personnel, as far as identifying funding sources go.
I think if the chairs agree to that cadence, that could be achieved. Mary, if you're okay with David going first.
There we go.
Okay. All right, what we have before us then is an amendment to the motion to refer these items to public works, to dual refer the first item 0550-25 to vote Public Works and Finance and Personnel. Alder Weidner for a second time.
Well, I'm speaking of this new amendment,
Okay.
so it's the first time.
Please.
Fortune also had.
And I'm just speaking again, sending it to both committees. This does not belong at finance. This is a public, possibly a public works project. We would get an idea if this project could go forward this year, or something that we would want to put in the budget for next year. I can see what's happening with every communication that I submit. So I would ask my colleagues to respect the Alderman of 6th District request for this to go to the Public Works Committee. And not with a joint referral to finance. It's got no business in finances at this point, unless the committee, the Public Works Committee makes a recommendation to send it to finance.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would be in support of this going to Public Works, to the committee. Going to their committee, getting the information that's needed. If there is a cost, I'm quite sure that the committee will work it out. And if there's a need for Finance and Personnel Committee afterwards, then I'll be open to that. But I'm in support of it going to that committee, and then we'll find out once we get that committee, what's the other steps.
Alder Bavon.
I agree with President Gordon with this. It's one of those things that the number comes from the Public Works Committee. The number is the number. When we get the agenda the Friday before, we have plenty of time to reach out to the finance director, what have you, to see what implications this may have. And I have faith in my colleagues on the Public Works and Services Committee, that they're gonna be able to determine this, just like we determined many things before. It's just ridiculous that we're going through this. Put it to Public Works and let's move on.
Alder Allen.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to address the toxicity in the room right now. So I agree with Mayor Mason. The reason why it was even brought up the question in the first place is because there was not an indicator. It wasn't anything personal. And it doesn't have to be addressed that way. I think after we've had this very robust conversation about the backstory of how this even works, the direction that we're going in right now is absolutely clear and correct, and it'll make it more concise, going forward. But to suggest that we're doing this because we're trying to be anti-professional is, I think, is against what we're trying to do here. We're literally trying to identify where the money comes from, and because this is a new conversation for some of us and for some of the people that are even listening, it was worth having. Nothing is ever a waste of time if the goal is to find a way to work together and to move forward.
And then
Alder Harmon.
the last thing, the joint referral was made by the chair of Public Works. And the chair of Public Works, since I've been on Public Works, has been a very good chair. And if his recommendation is for joint referral, which I'm in agreement with, I think that his assessment is very good, because he could have said it only needs to go to Public Works. So the chair of Public Works is saying that a dual referral should happen, and that is why the amendment has been altered to meet that, since the chair has been making a very good decision within that department. Thank you.
Point of clarification. Or we could go for a vote, but Alder Bavon. All right, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion before us to do a dual referral on this item. It's an amendment to the main motion to refer these items listed to the Public Works and Services Committee. What we have before us is a motion to dual refer it to Public Works and Finance and Personnel, with the general person's agreement that Public Works would go first and Finance would go second. We do have Alder Frazier on the line. He is the first vote. When the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Frazier,
No.
Alder Townsend,
No.
Alder Davis,
Clarification, I don't even know what the motion is on.
It's for a dual referral, send it to vote.
No,
Alder Mack,
No.
Alder Jurgensen,
Aye.
Alder Weidner,
No.
Alder Horton,
No.
Alder Scott,
no,
Alder Allen,
No.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Land,
aye,
Alder Perez,
No.
Alder Kelly,
No.
Alder Herman,
Yes.
Alder Pabon,
No.
four ayes, 11 noes.
The amendment fails. So back to the main motion. For all of the items listed to go to Public Works and Services as listed, that motion has been made. Second. Alder Brett seconded, thank you, Alder Brett. All those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, the motion to refer those items carries. We then move on to referral to Public Safety and Licensing Committee. Alder Weiner, would you like to make a motion on those items?
I would move to forward the following items to the Public Safety and Licensing Committee.
Let's go.
First item is 0555-25, communication on behalf of the clerk's office requesting the appearance of Elijah Simmons for a new operator's license. Communication 0556-25, communication on behalf of the city clerk's office requesting the appearance of Bart Spain for a new operator's license. 0557-25, communication submitting a renewal application for a massage establishment license. Quixia Song DBA name massage located at 1324 Main Street. Massage Song owner. 0573-25, communication on behalf of PSL committee requesting the appearance of Carol Payton, agent for GMRI Inc. DBA Olive Garden Italian Restaurant located at 6,000 Durang Avenue pursuant to a formal expression of concern. And also requesting consideration of rescinding formal expression of concern. 0574-25, communication on behalf of the Racine Police Department for the licensed premise report. 0575-25, communication requesting any consideration, any formal expression of concern or other actions pursuant to the police report. 0577-25, communication from the city clerk's office to make a renewal request for intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage for the 2025-2026 year for 20 Grand Lux LLC, 1307 Douglas Avenue, Courtney Marshall, agent.
The motion and a second to refer these items to Public Safety and Licensing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Now we move on to committee reports. Alder Land, did you have any requests for separate consideration?
No, Your Honor.
Without objection, these items will be placed on the consent agenda. We will move on to Public Works and Services. Alder Mack, did you have any item for separate consideration?
Item 0476-25.
Okay, you'd like to read the item, and I believe there's a request for an amendment.
All right, communication on behalf of the Department of Public Works submitting the final resolution for paving. The following alleys, I'll dispense with reading that, but go to the committee action, which was to approve the following, railroad right of way, 17th Street and Flood Avenue, Holmes Avenue, north south. Railroad right of way, 17th Street and Holmes Avenue, Floyd Avenue, east west. Washington Avenue, Linderman Avenue, Grove Avenue, West Boulevard, east west. Winslow Street, Oak Street, and Jones Street, North Memorial Drive, south, north and south. 16th Street, Washington Avenue, and Flood, Holmes Avenue, northwest, southeast. 16th Street, Washington Avenue, and South Memorial Drive, Owen Avenue, north south. 16th Street, Washington Avenue, and South Memorial Drive, Owen Avenue, south, east, west. 17th Street, 16th Street, and Flood Avenue, Holmes Avenue, north south. 17th Street, 16th Street, and Holmes Avenue, Boyd Avenue, north south. 17th Street, 16th Street, Racine Street, Meade Street, east west. 17th Street, 16th Street, and Racine Street, Meade Street, north south, and 20th Street, Decoven Avenue, Meade Street, House Street, east west. Make a motion to approve.
Okay, motion and a second to approve these items. Alder Davis, would you like to make an amendment?
Yes, I would like to make an amendment to delete Street, 16th Street to Washington Avenue and South Memorial Drive to Owen Avenue, east west.
There is a second on that amendment.
Second.
Seconded by,
I seconded it.
okay, thank you. Seconded by Alder Weidner. Would you like to speak to your item, Alder Davis?
I've met with the constituent numerous times, and they've spoken against having the repair of this alleyway as being they're the sole abutting property owner. And the cost would be fully onto them, and right now it's not feasible for them, so requesting to delete that alley.
Alder Mack,
I'd like to just ask staff a question,
please.
and that is,
All right, go ahead.
how many property owners are on that stretch of the alley?
Oh. The one thing I didn't bring, well.
It's in my desk, yeah.
We're talking about 16th Washington, South Memorial, Owen.
East West,
East, west, that's
the north south leg as
the
well.
one owner, they own the property on Owen and the property on Washington Avenue.
Well, where is this? There's only 2 properties on that stretch. One on either side, and it's actually the same property owner that owns both sides of this. The private property on both sides of the alley.
Thank you, I would support this,
What was the pavement score on,
I'm sorry,
what was the pavement score on the?
I didn't know we were gonna go into this kind of detail, but well, they're all 1s and 2s. Passer rated, so
On
they're
a
the
scale of,
lowest of the low.
Alder White,
If I recall correctly, we don't do scoring of alleys, do we?
Yeah,
Or is that something that's?
yeah, we don't, it's a separate scoring system. We did all our streets are done on the PCI rating. But our alleys are done on a passer rating, which is a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
if I could finish,
Alder White has the floor.
I thought I did.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. Alder
And it
Mack
kind of went
goes
back
ahead.
and forth. So. I would support the deletion of this, considering that. You basically have one property owner that is impacted by this. With the caveat that he'll be sitting down with. Public Works staff to try to work out some solutions for the near future. Because even though we delete this year, it very well could come back next year. And so if he's willing to sit down with Public Works, I can support deleting this without getting into a long lengthy discussion if the rest of the committee agrees. The guidelines that we established as a committee are just guidelines, but if 50% or more were against, we sided in most cases with the property owner, and it appears that this is the case here.
Alder Davis, for a second.
Thank you. I just want to say the pacer rate is 2 to answer that question for that. And as I stated, the pacer is 2. And as stated in committee, the plan is to set up time to sit down with Public Works. And perhaps city development to see what we can do with that parcel. So that's the hope.
Alder Hart,
I don't know if all the Widener still wants to speak, she was before.
Alder White, did you have to? Alder,
All right, thank you. I'm glad that the owners are willing to sit down with Public Works, because considering that half the street, the north-south side will be repaired, and the southeast-west side will not be repaired, it could cause problems, but as long as the owner understands that the cost in the future probably would be more, I'm willing to support the deletions.
any further discussion on this amendment? So again, it's an amendment to item 0476-25, which to approve the assessments listed. But what we have before us is an amendment to delete or remove the item listed 16th Street, Washington Avenue and South Memorial, Owen Avenue, South, East, West. So all those in favor of removing that particular alley for consideration, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Frazier,
Yes.
Alder Townsend,
Aye.
Alder Davis,
Aye.
Alder Mack,
Alright,
Alder Jurgensen,
Aye.
Alder Widener,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder Skeda,
Aye.
Alder Allen,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Land,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Kelly,
Aye.
Alder Harmon,
Aye.
Alder Bravo,
Aye.
59.
The amendment to remove that item has passed. We're now back to the main motion, which is to approve the items listed with the removal of the one item from the amendment. Any discussion on the main motion? Seeing none, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Fraser,
Aye.
Alder Townsend,
Aye.
Alder Davis,
Aye.
Alder Mack,
Aye.
Alder Jorgensen,
Aye.
Alder Weidner,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder Skeda,
Aye.
Alder Allen,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Land,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Kelly,
Aye.
Alder Harmon,
Aye.
Alder Bravo,
Aye.
59.
That motion carries. Alder Mack, did you have any other items for separate? No, sir. And without objection, these items was placed on the consent agenda, and we will move on to the public safety and licensing committee. Alder Weiner, did you have any items for separate consideration or approval?
I have two items for separate consideration and discussion.
Would you like to read those items?
First item is 0494-25, communication on behalf of the Toronto Profit for the application for a Class A retail fermented malt beverage license and a gas station service license for Fuel and Save LLC DBA located at 930 Washington Avenue, Bashar, Quedan, agent. These two items are related. Second item is 0495-25, communication for a new petition for geographical restrictions for a Class A fermented beverage license for Fuel and Save LLC, DBA Fuel and Save, located at 930 Washington Avenue, Bashar, Quedan, agent. I ask that these items be referred back to the PSL committee, and I'd like the city attorney's office to explain why that would happen, because I'm sure that the agent is going to be very disappointed for the delay.
Correct. So there is a motion to refer both of these items back to public safety and licensing. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Pete, and then a request from Alder Weiner from the city attorney just to explain the procedural requirement of a public hearing for the council for this exemption.
There's just a requirement under the ordinance that the city has to exceed geographic restrictions for Class A liquor licenses, that there be a public hearing held on exceeding the geographic restriction. That has not yet been done.
Alder Weiner?
A question for the city attorney, because this is an ordinance, would it be possible for 2/3 of the council to override that ordinance? So that we did not have to have this delay?
The 2/3 override is for a rule, which is different than on ordinances, a law of the city. So I would say no.
Thank you.
So there's a motion to refer these items 0495-25 and 0495-94 and 95-25 back to public safety and licensing. Any otherwise?
The other thing that needs to be clarified is the timing of this. I don't think the city attorney addressed this, but I want the agent who's watching to be sure to understand that it's gonna be 2 PSL meetings before we will be able to take this up again, and maybe the city attorney can explain why.
There's a requirement that notice be given to all property owners within a radius of 0.5 of a mile. That has to be given at least 5 days before the hearing.
Alder Davis?
The agent is aware that there will be a deferral somewhat of it, because he wasn't expecting it to come tonight. I spoke with the agent, so. It might have been miscommunication, but he wasn't expecting it for tonight.
Any more discussion on the referral of these 2 items back to public safety and licensing?
Just clarification, so it's going back to public and safety and licensing for the hearing, or the hearing has to be before common council, because that would allow the council to have the option to defer. And the public hearing be held here, which would save essentially 2 weeks if the council so chose.
The ordinance specifically says the common council shall hold a public hearing.
Or it saves 2 weeks for the applicant.
Okay, like I said, given that that's the requirement, Alder Weidner, would you wanna modify your motion to defer this item to the next council meeting? So we can speed that up and have a public hearing at the next council meeting?
That would be preferable, thank you.
Okay, if you're willing to modify that motion to defer this item, these items, sorry, to the next council meeting.
I would amend my original motion to defer to PSL to deferral to the next common council meeting.
And who made the second? Ethan second, he agrees to that. Okay, so we modified the motion, with advice from the clerk to move this a little bit faster. So we can have the public hearing at the next council meeting. Any further discussion on deferring this item, these items, sorry, this is item 0494-25 and 0495-25, they kind of go hand in hand. Any further discussion on the deferral of these two items? Seeing none, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Fraser,
Aye.
Alder Townsend,
Aye.
Alder Davis,
Aye.
Alder Mack,
Aye.
Alder Jurgensen,
Aye.
Alder Weidner,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder Sketa,
Aye.
Alder Allen,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Land,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Kelly,
Aye.
Alder Harmon,
Aye.
Alder Pavon,
Aye.
15 ayes.
Those deferrals have passed. Alder Weiner, did you have any other items for separate consideration?
I do not, thank you.
Seeing none, we will move on, we will refer the remainder of these items to the consent agenda and moving on to the community development authority report. Alder Skata, have you have any requests for separate consideration at the community development authority?
No, I didn't.
Okay, looks like we have, Alder Weiner does have a question.
I would like to vote on these items separately.
Okay, there's a request to vote on these items separately. With that, Alder Skata, would you read the first item?
051725, communication from the Assistant Director of City Development through Resolution 2509 related to the property owned by Cheryl Auckland, located at 1644 Packard Avenue for potential acquisition by the Community Development Authority for blight elimination and redevelopment of the CDA acquired such property, notwithstanding that it is not in an existing redevelopment area.
Would you like to make a motion to approve that?
I would like to make a motion to approve that.
Second. There's a motion from Alder Skata, seconded by Alder Matt, to approve the item. Discussion. Alder Weidner.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions on this item, if the director of city development could.
Please state your question.
Well, first, I'd like to know if this property is currently occupied.
Yes, it is.
So do we have any idea of what the relocation expense is going to be for the individuals that occupy?
There will be no relocation expenses on our part.
How,
It is, we're buying this property outright. And when we buy the property, it will be ours.
so when government entity purchases the property, they're responsible for the relocation. Am I incorrect?
Let me correct that. I do not believe that their property is occupied.
And it is for sale on the market, right?
Exactly.
Alder Weiner, please continue. Did you have another question?
No, that was it.
Any further discussion on item 0517-25? Seeing none, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Fraser,
Aye.
Alder Townsend,
Aye.
Alder Davis,
Aye.
Alder Mack,
Aye.
Alder Jurgensen,
Aye.
Alder Weidner,
Aye.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder Sketa,
Aye.
Alder Allen,
Aye.
Alder Pete,
Aye.
Alder Land,
Aye.
Alder Perez,
Aye.
Alder Kelly,
Aye.
Alder Harmon,
Aye.
Alder Pavon,
Aye.
15 ayes.
Motion carries. Alder Skata, would you read your next item, please?
I would like to refer a motion for item 052025, communication from the Assistant Director of City Development, the Resolution 2512, submitting change order number 1 to contract 2024175, demolition of 725 Lake Avenue, CDBG.
Would you like to make a motion to approve that?
Oh, I did mention it first. I would like to make a motion before I started speaking. Sorry.
Okay, great. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Horton. Any discussion? We wants to see it up close and personal, it's right next door. Alder Weiner.
You've got questions on this one too. Cause I do have some heartburn for a $236,000 change order on a $1.3 million project that had been bid out, and I think we only had one bidder on that. And I see that it's because the DNR came in at 4 different times for different samplings after the demolition began. So my question, a couple of them, is in regards to DNR. So it sounds like this from the ABM is that we are paying the DNR to come in and do these sampling. Is that correct?
No, the DNR can come in at their own free will, and at the time, we have to accommodate them. And during their accommodation, they found some additional investments that needed to be reviewed.
And how is it that that would not have been noticed in the first go around when this job is gonna get bid?
Otherwise, I cannot answer that question. Maybe when you were peeling back the layers of the onion, you find things. The contractor was taking things out of the building to ready the building for demolition. And during that process, you peel things back and find things that were not found the first time.
But also, otherwise, the DNR was very, very thorough.
I'm sure
On
they
their
were.
multiple visits to the site.
So I'm sure they were, and the DNR has been very, very generous to the city of Racine in providing grants for such things. So I'm wondering, is there a grant that we could apply for rather than using TID 9 and TID 17 as to cover this cost?
Not to my knowledge.
So the 1.3 was covered by CDBG dollars.
There's a combination of different funding sources. We use different buckets, as mentioned in the ABM. So we had to aggregate different funds from different sources to pay for the demolition of the YMCA.
So the original project was funded from $1.3 million from CDBG. I
Not
remember that
exclusively, no.
distinctly. Is that correct?
Not exclusively.
No,
No?
no, in the ABM, it points out where we took money from a former TID as well.
Well, this ABM on the $236,000 change order? I know those come from TID 9 and TID 17.
That's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
So what is your question again? I'm misunderstanding you.
Is there? Well, my original question was, isn't there some other source than using these TIDs for the demolition of the YMCA?
Not to our knowledge.
Otherwise, my recollection is we used as much CDBG on this project as we legally could. And the shortfall required us to draw from the TIDs to make up the difference.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions regarding 0520-25? Okay.
Yeah, I think I have a question for Wolf, if you could please, sorry, I waited a little bit. So when we sent this out for bidding and everything for like the demolition costs, was it the company that's doing the demolition that came back and said, well, we think this is what it's gonna cost? Or did we kind of like do that internally and then kind of, like how, like if the company that's doing this demolition, were they the ones that originally inspected the building and said, yeah, this is what we found, this is what it's gonna?
Very good question. During our initial the bid out, we had a date where all the bidders could come and inspect the property. We had a thorough walkthrough. That walkthrough took probably 5 or 6 hours for the different contractors to walk through the property, inspect, anticipate the costs associated with the demolition, and come up with a bid. We had no knowledge or heavy-handedness and dictate what the bid would be. We were surprised with the range of bids that we received. But again, these are professionals. They have done this multiple times. So they should know what to anticipate when they go in a building with the age of the YMCA. So they're using their best knowledge and their best guess to form an estimate to move forward.
All right, thank you.
Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, when the clerk calls you the roll, please vote as you wish.
Alder Fraser,
Aye.
Alder Townsend,
Aye.
Alder Davis, Alder Matt,
Aye.
Alder Jergensen,
Aye.
Alder Weidner,
No.
Alder Horton,
Aye.
Alder Skata. Aye. Alder Allen.
Aye.
Alder Pete.
Yeah.
Alder Land.
Aye.
Alder Perez.
Aye.
Alder Kelly.
Aye.
Alder Harmon.
No.
Alder Pavon.
No.
Twelve ayes, 3 noes.
Motion passes. We then move on to the office of the mayor report. Alder Horton, did you have any item that were considered?
Not at this time, but I would read them both.
Okay, please.
0551-25, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason on behalf of Jamie Kirkwood. Racine Juneteenth Committee Chair requesting to close Karan Butler Drive from Grand Avenue to Wisconsin Avenue, the Coven Center second driveway entrance, Wisconsin Avenue, only a portion from Karan Butler Drive to the Coven Center second driveway entrance, Roosevelt Park Drive from Karan Butler Drive to 724th Street for the Juneteenth Festival on June 14th, 2024, from 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. Move to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second to approve the item. Any discussion on this item? Just if people sometimes wonder why the direct report was there for timeliness, we couldn't get the approval of it done before the Juneteenth event. So that is why I couldn't direct refer. I would just like to give people a heads up on why that occurs. Seeing no further discussion, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Frazier.
Aye.
Alder Townsend.
Aye.
Alder Davis. Aye. Alder Mack.
Aye.
Alder Jurgensen.
Aye.
Alder Weidner.
Aye.
Alder Horton.
Aye.
Alder Skata.
Aye.
Alder Allen.
Aye.
Alder Pete.
Aye.
Alder Land.
Aye.
Alder Perez.
Aye.
Alder Kelly.
Aye.
Alder Harmon.
Aye.
Alder Pavon.
Aye.
59.
Motion carries. Report, do you want to read the next item?
Next item, 0576-25, communication sponsored by Mayor Mason submitting the following appointments. Taylor Nelson to the Library Board for the term expiring April 30th for 2027. Rosalind Thomas to the Waterworks Commission for a term expiring September 30th, 2029. Rosalind Thomas to the Water Waste Commission for a term expiring September 30th, 2029. Alder Mack in the position of Alder to the Due Process Board for a term expiring April 20th, 2026. Dr. Burgey to the Board of Health for a term expiring April 30th, 2027. Robert Turner to the Police and Fire Commission for a term expiring April 30th, 2027. Sarah Bostic to the Board of Ethics for a term expiring April 30th, 2030. McKenna Quinter to the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Board for the term expiring April 30th, 2028. Dr. Weiss to the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Board for a term expiring April 30th, 2028. Move to approve.
Second.
The motion and a second to approve these items, Alder White.
Thank you. I'd just like to clarify that last appointment, Dr. Weiss. Can we get a first name on that doctor?
Allison.
Okay, thank you.
I just one clarification is Rosalind Thomas on their twice, is that just a clerical error?
And one is for Waterworks, the other one is for wastewater.
Then I just can't read. Okay, thank you. Hey, Joel, sorry. Okay, bye.
Any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, when the clerk calls your name, please vote as you wish.
Alder Frazier.
Aye.
Alder Townsend.
Aye.
Alder Davis.
Aye.
Alder Mack.
Aye.
Alder Jurgensen.
Aye.
Alder Weiner.
No.
Alder Horton.
Aye.
Alder Skata.
Aye.
Alder Allen.
Aye.
Alder Pete.
Yes.
Alder Land.
Aye.
Alder Perez.
Aye.
Alder Kelly.
Aye.
Alder Harmon.
Aye.
Alder Pavon.
Aye.
14 ayes, 1 no.
Motion carries. Moving now on to the consent agenda. At this time, President Horton, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
The motion in a second. I think Alder Phone got it in right under the wire there. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. We now move on to common council announcements. Announcements are limited to recognition of city residents and employees, memorials, and non-political community events. Discussion of matters related to governmental business is prohibited. Before we open it up for announcement, I do just want to thank the library and the staff for hosting us this summer for June and July. At the very least, it's a reminder The standing committees will also be meeting here as well in the committee rooms that are on the floor below us. So please take note of that and be prepared for those changes. With that, open up to announcements all around.
I would like to give my condolences to my aunt, Willie Mae Jones, on the passing of her husband, George Jones of Mississippi. May there be a quick healing for the family, and may God provide an increased level of peace to everyone. Thank you.
Alderman.
Okay, happy June, everyone. I wanted to just let everyone know that we know this is Gun Violence Awareness Month, but we also want to call attention to the NAACP is having their first annual community bike ride that will be on June 14th, starting at 1 o'clock. Registration is at 12 at Festival Park. It's 2 miles going, 2 miles coming back, bring the kiddos. And the other one is the blood drive that we are having. The NAACP will be hosting that out of the NAACP branch, 1633 Racine Street. You have an opportunity to get gift cards if you sign up, and there is a possibility to win $7,000. Isn't that fun? So.
When's the blood drive?
That is June the 20th. And you do need to go on, there's flyer floating around, go online to register for that in advance.
Any other announcements from Alderman?
Thank you. Last year I mentioned this and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it again. Yesterday was the 101st anniversary of my grandfather, who was American born, my great grandparents who were American born, and my American born great great grandmother who became United States citizens, even though they were born here, when Native Americans were granted US citizenship. I'd also like to congratulate my coworker Grace on her recent engagement.
Not Grace Allen.
I have another job. Not Grace Allen.
Any other announcements? Alder Davis.
Thank you. It's a happy anniversary. Shout out to my parents, Marvin and Lynn Davis. And we're at the end of the school year. Congratulations to the graduates. But also, folks, please just keep in mind that children will be outside playing. Slow down. Watch out for our babies, please. And y'all help me celebrate. My baby done made it. He graduates this year. So that's it.
Alder Pete.
Oh, she said, well, congratulations to our graduates.
All right, Alder Hurt.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Friday, on the 6th at Sam Johnson Parkway, there will be a Wear Orange event for National Gun Violence Awareness Day. It'll be from 12 to 2. If you're available, come down. We're gonna have a couple of guest speakers. And also we'll have free food. So come by and help celebrate that day on June 6th down at Sam Johnson Park.
The gun violence prevention efforts also have shirts. Alder Allen is wearing hers, but if people would like one, feel free to request one. Alder B.
Yes, thank you. Just want to remind everyone that the Juneteenth sneaker ball is Friday the 6th.
Yeah, just a reminder that the Senior Neighborhood Watch will go out to events through cop houses throughout the month, every month. And that on Wednesday, June 11th, Argonne's Plateau Garage food truck will be outside of the City Hall Annex from 11 to 2. Portion of those sales will be donated to the Senior Neighborhood Watch. And again, congratulations to graduates, congratulations to the parents that are going to get there, and our educators as well, because I'm sure patience is a virtue for a lot of them. Yeah, a lot of the other great events all mentioned by the other alders.
Other announcements? Alder Johnson.
On the 9th from 10 to 12 at the branch, there is coffee with a cop. So it's always fun to check out. And also, we have a lot of really cool Juneteenth celebration activities coming up in the 2nd District at the Bryant Center and stuff this month. So make sure to swing by.
Any other announcements? And I just want to offer my my middle daughter Amelia will be graduating from 8th grade, doing the speeches at the ceremony, so we're excited for that. And then I also just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge Father Bruce Clanton, who passed away in the last week. He was a really big influence in my life. He led the confirmation program I went through. He was the priest who married my wife and me. He was there for the baptism of our kids. And spent the better part of 4 decades doing a lot of really good work in the community, particularly in the Lincoln King neighborhood. I'm 52. Cynthia Lopez, who works in our office, is 19. And the news came, she said, "Oh, I went through his program when I was in middle school." So that's, almost 4 decades right there. And I'm not even the oldest group of people that Bruce worked with. He was an unapologetic progressive in the spirit of St. Francis and the Salvadoran order. He always had these shirts on that said WWMD, which would pose the question, what would Mary do? He was a fierce advocate for the poor and the underserved, and he will be missed. He did a lot of great work and influencing my life, but a lot of great work for hundreds of people in this community. So he will be missed. And so I wanted to adjourn his honor. There's nothing else at this time. President Horner, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All seconds, all those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.